Hello, football fans. Ryan here. This is Officials Timeout, Episode 2. Welcome. I am being joined by, to my left, Ryan. You want to introduce yourself?
Hey, my name's Ryan. I'm a official here in Vancouver, Washington, part of the Evergreen Football Officials Association.
Awesome. And our third, Justin.
Hey, Ryan. Thanks for having me again. Justin, I'm here also a member of the Evergreen Football Officials Association and excited to talk some more football.
We're doing three-man tonight. Our season completely finished. We're well into the off season, resting, recuperating. Looking back, I know it's a long time ago, but looking back on the 2023 season, what was your high point? Justin, I'm going to start with you. What was your season's high point?
Yeah, I kicked this around a lot when you sent out the ideas for the show, and I kind of pride myself on trying not to be very up or very down. Right? It's more about, to me, how you feel when you walk off the field. And I my first year I white hatted exclusively for varsity games. I didn't work anything else, and I feel like honestly my high point was walking off the field in a game that was relatively contentious. There were a couple of big hits. There was an injury. Tempers were flaring on both sides of the field. And I walked off with one of our more experienced umpires. And being the ninth white hat in the association right now, I don't get a lot of the experience.
Hold on. He's not the ninth white hat.
Anyway, the first full-time new white hat, you don't get a ton of the experienced umpires, but I had one of our most experienced umpires just come off and say, I felt like you really controlled that well. And it was just this little thing, and it's not this euphoric high. I didn't have a ton of super close games. I think I only had a couple that were close, but it felt like a compliment from somebody that just had been through it a lot. It's a person that's worked state semifinal, state final games. It was just kind of I don't know, reassuring, if it is maybe the right word, to just have somebody that's got that kind of experience say, that could have gone pretty sideways, and I think you had a good handle on it. So for being a newer white hat, I think that was foundation building for me, and something to kind of take away and work on in the future. So
you conducted the train into the station.
Excellent. Yep. Landed the plane, didn't have to pull the chute. Everything worked out. So yeah.
Awesome. Ryan, what was your high point for the last season 2023?
I was working at the headlines on the wing. I was obviously on the sideline with a coach. This coach was getting very emotional about some calls. And this year, one of my goals is, when I was a wing, whether I'm a wing or a white hat, I wanted to try to, whenever possible, de-escalate situations. And so we talked to some other officials that had been doing this for a while, some that have things like law enforcement background, and we talked about some de-escalation types of techniques. And so tried to incorporate those into my repertoire when it comes to coaches getting angry or emotional. And I just remember it sort of clicked, and it just worked, by myself sort of bringing down, the how loud we were talking, and by being calm, and by, genuinely listening to them. I took a situation where this coach was getting very animated, and it could have turned into something where we're having to, administer it through the officials or flags or anything like that. And instead, it was the exact opposite. We had a good conversation about it. And then I think that coach then recognized that. And then throughout the game, where this has been a coach maybe in past years, has gotten very, very hot throughout that game, we had a really good line of communication. So that was probably my highlight, is incorporating those de-escalation techniques and having it really work so that we can have a really good line of communication. And so that, we are then, everybody's focused on the play on the field, and not any sort of, back and forth between an official and the coach on the sideline.
I think it's cool, and I'm not going to say it either, but I think it wasn't, oh, we got the pass interference call, or I got this great call on a hold. It is stuff to do with managing the game, because we all know that's the big one. We got to get to the end of the game. So that's awesome. Both of those are awesome. The other thing besides manage a game we're really concerned about is time, and mine is time based, temporal based. We have one team in our association, one school. It's the Washington State School to Death, and they play 6-man football. And yes, it is the most surreal experience ever on the face of the earth. And we'll probably talk about that in a later episode. But I did one of their 6-man games in 2 hours. That was a highlight of mine because usually it takes like 3 hours because they're scoring, it's 70 to 50. And also they play on a 100-yard field, 110-yard, 120-yard field, but they play the 6-man field. So if you need to kick on one end, you want to kick like an extra point or field goal, you have to go down to the other end to do it because only one end is aligned right. So these games can take a really long time, and I got one in under 2 hours, and so I'm very excited. And I think the other highlight, and I know that's kind of a joke, so I'll give you kind of a serious one. I started a half by throwing a flag on a team that wasn't out of the locker room. So 15 yards for not being on the field. The coach was cool about it. Then I ended the half with there was an onside kick, and they only had 3 guys on the one side of the kicker. So I started and ended the half on penalties. No one in the stands knew what they were. And so I thought that was awesome too, because people are like, what's going on? I don't have a microphone. I can't explain it. And they're like, what's going on? They're just throwing flags for no reason, but they were righteous calls. I started and ended the half that way. That was the high point of my season. Okay. Low point. Now we don't have an hour, so I can't go through all my low points, but my low point, this is totally me, was my last game of the season. So I got to live with this throughout the entire off season. I did not have a great game. Few plays I wish I had back. I embarrassed myself with a rule interpretation. My brain works. When I have a choice between like A or B, I always get them mixed up. Left or right, one or two. I get them mixed up. I got it mixed up. There was running into the kicker, and I thought it was one of those you could add on, but you can't. And I had it all confused in my brain, but I was really adamant about it. So that was great too. Then I had the coach tell me, because coach was getting their doors blown off. And again, wasn't my greatest day, but we didn't cost them the game. The coach said, some people really care about this. This matters to some people. Now, this is a Saturday night. It's like 40 degrees. It's drizzly. It was my anniversary, and I do care. I just was not having a good night. And neither was this coach. I didn't say anything because I didn't need to say anything. He can let him vent, but I think that was a low point, being told you don't care when you do care. And so, and again, a great thing is I get to endure it throughout the entire offseason. That was my last taste of high school football for 2023. Justin, your low point.
Yeah, mine rhymes a little bit. It's obvious. It's not it's not a specific play or a really specific moment even, but the things that I think we struggle with a little bit are when we're bringing up younger officials and we're working youth games, and this is not going to turn into parent bashing. I think sometimes it's easy to say, oh, the parents are mean and they say bad things to me. It's not going to be coach bashing. The thing that I struggle with a lot rhymes with what you said about the presumption that we come into something with either an objective of this team from this town is going to win this 8-year-old football game, and I struggle with that. And I think that's something that when I look back on my season and things that I want to try to figure out a way to improve that perception. And, honestly, if one of these videos hits, someone's counter and they watch it and they just understand a little bit about, my Saturdays generally would be, I wake up, I've worked a varsity game the night before. I'll come out, I'll work 2 youth games in the morning. I go coach my kid playing youth games in the afternoon. So I definitely understand like the coach dynamic of it, but the presumption that anybody that's taken their Saturday to go do this stuff is out there to get the $40 or whatever they're going to make. And putting that into like such a personal tone is really hard. Right. I think that anybody that takes their time to be involved in youth sports, whether it be a parent that's getting up in the morning to drive their kid there, a coach that's, been out there 5 hours during the week in addition to their job, taking their time to be a mentor to those kids, and us as officials, and even the game administrators, the people that run the leagues. Like, I understand that there's bad apple that ruins every bunch, and somebody comes across somebody that gives them a bad experience. But the bulk of the people that are doing that work are, one, they're trying their best. Two, we're generally trying to train some people, because if we don't, and we don't use those games for what they are, which is a learning opportunity for everybody on the field, that's tough. And then three, the presumption of malcontent is tough to battle. And so I would say that just there were a few instances throughout the season where that's tough, and it is hard to get up and say, yeah, I'm going to go do this on Saturday morning and go work a couple games, but at the end of the day, you get a couple moments in that game where the kids are fun, and you're out there, you're getting some exercise, sun's shining, or maybe it's raining, who knows, whatever kind of weather you like, and that brings you back. But that's definitely, like, for me, this year was kind of the hardest thing. And there were a couple incidences, and obviously I don't want to get into them, but that's where it was for me.
Okay. And Justin, I think we've all experienced that, and thanks for sharing that, because it is certainly tough to hear. To be a little on the lighter side of that, I had just started being an official, and I had just started officiating when I moved here. And a coach said to me once, you always have it out for XYZ team. And I was like, sir, I had to Google where to drive today. Like, I have no idea any of the background behind these teams or anything that's happened in the past. Like, I had to use Google Maps, and so I completely understand what you're saying, and it certainly, can hurt you, especially when you're spending a lot of time like that. So for sure, thanks for sharing on that.
Yeah. Youth levels, we don't even know what games we're working. I mean, they just say,
what level it is.
Yeah, go there at 9 and go to this location at 9. We don't know. I mean, Ryan, did you already tell us your low point?
I did not.
What was your low point, Ryan?
Yeah, I had an IW, or inadvertent whistle, in a varsity game. It's something that big mistake to make. Not something I take lightly. For officials listening to this, my advice would be own it. Don't try to be the one to hide it. I blew that whistle and I didn't, because people hear it. People stop playing. So own it, and then get all the information you need to properly administer it. So who has the ball? Where's the ball? What down? And then communicate that with your crew. And then, the white hat came over and explained it to the coach, and we played in the end. Probably not a big deal, for the outcome of that game. But it is something that happens, and I think it's important to talk about as officials. In terms of, the specifics behind this one, there was a really good play fake, and then so good that the defender tackled what I presumed was the ball carrier, and then a second player went and dove on the pile, or sort of, tackled him. So my thought was, whoa, we might have a tussle, breaking out, or we might have a unsportsmanlike sort of penalty breaking out. So I blow the whistle, get the spot, and then I realized there was no ball at the bottom of that pile. So that was the sort of, things around it. Lessons learned from it. Like I said, own it. Know the situation so you can administrate it correctly, and then always see that ball down before you blow the whistle. Better be a second late on that than a second early.
IDubs suck, but kudos to you. You owned it, and you were trying to protect the kids. So I mean, those things happen, and if you're gonna have an IDub, have one like that where you're trying to protect the kids. I had a couple at lower levels because the damn quarterback was blocking my view as he was prone trying to grab the ball. I thought he had it and I blow it, and he didn't, and oops. Anybody have the safety, not a safety, where it's like close, but you put it on the one because you don't want to? I had one of those too. I don't know.
Didn't have it, but I'm sure we'll do an episode about this at some point when we talk about coverage and we get more into fundamentals of officiating. But I do think it's an interesting cover now with some of the mechanics changes where we're within the state of Washington at least. But it is something that yeah, that's always one where you're kind of grasping and trying to make sure you got it right because it is so critical. Points and the ball versus just running another play. So.
And it was kind of one of those game management things. Like, okay, we don't need a safety here.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of mechanics and stuff, we had a somebody on in one of our videos leave a comment, and I'd like to share this with you. The commenter asked, "I have a question. Last week, a center caught a pass. What does the rule book say? It was on a 2-point conversion. What is the penalty? Is there a limitation on where that player can be standing when he catches the ball? The officials missed the call, left the field. Any help will help me understand. Retired national in volleyball." So he's a volleyball official, not a football official. And I assumed it was like some swinging gate sort of thing. And like, yeah. And I also assumed he meant snapper, not center. And so, yeah, just because you snap the ball doesn't mean you can't catch a touchdown pass, but a lot of things have to happen. So I wrote him a comment kind of saying that and said, "Hey, if you know the play, let us know." So he wrote back, "Okay, the game was Schefter High, SIF Central Section, California something football, interscholastic football. So it's in California."
Mm-hmm.
It was a semifinal game, and it was the last play of the semifinal game. What happened was, because I was able to go look up the play on the National Federation of High School website. It was they were going to kick it for one to tie the game. The game was over, so they're kicking the try to tie the game. They had a delay of game foul, so they're back on the 8. The snapper, bad snap. The holder gets up, runs around, throws the ball to number 3 in the end zone. 2-point conversion, good. They end up winning the game and going to the finals. Okay. But the thing was, number 3 was the snapper. And apparently, then the announcer said, they huddled, the officials huddled outside, decided the snapper was an ineligible receiver because he snapped the ball, and it wasn't a swinging gate play or anything. Went back in, spoke to the coaches. The the CIF did not change the ball. CIF, that sounds kind of ominous. Like I'm with the CIF. Parents are all up in arms. Of course they are. I know that California can change any NFHS rule. Don't have a rule book. He wanted the rule book. He wanted the rule, and that's a little hard because there's so many, and it's really hard to cut. You can't really cut and paste. So parents are screaming that they cheated, but few have ever read a rule book or even own a whistle. That's a good line. And so again, he asked for the rules. But it was a wild play, and I'm thinking about it. We don't have a mechanic for that, do we? I mean, how would our association catch number 3 snapping the ball and catching a pass?
Well, to me, and this is something that comes up when you have a scrimmage kick formation and you've got potential lineman or a snapper, depending on your scrimmage kick formation. But 4th down or a try, you can have any numbers, so you can't really go by number, right? That's the first thing. And I would say that is something that if you're the umpire and this is maybe it's probably not the first time they've kicked a PAT during that game. You probably need to know what number. I mean, the snapper is the person that you are in charge of as far as making sure they don't get roughed, right? So to me, and not being involved in the play, and I'm not going to post-mortem this too much, but I feel like that one, if it's the snapper, that's probably one you should get because the umpire should know who that is, right? Even in Washington, where the mechanic we work is that on a PAT, the umpire would be under the uprights. And even in that delay of game situation where it's being snapped from the 8, the umpire would still be under the uprights. I think the harder one to get, and again, the reason why that's illegal for anybody that's watching this, and maybe our commenter is because he wasn't on the end of the line of scrimmage, right, with an eligible number. So it isn't about the location where he caught the ball. It's just that he cannot catch a forward pass, right? I mean, a legal forward pass across the line of scrimmage. So that's kind of the crux of that issue. But for me, as far as the mechanic of how we catch it, I feel like the umpire has to know who the snapper is. Now, if it's the guards or tackles, I think the only way you're going to be able to do it is if you have accountability from everybody on the field. So your referee should probably know who your kicker and your holder are, and your wings really should know who the eligibles on their end of the line of scrimmage are. And if you have those, it's a mosaic theory, right? You have to have you have all the eligibles covered if those three people know who they're looking at. It's sometimes hard. Some of the numbers you get on jerseys these days are hard to read, but I think you've got to have that. But it, to me, seems a little less excusable because it was the snapper, and that is the one other person in the play that somebody is accountable for. So that's just the way I think about it.
Yeah, I would highlight the wing's role in that. As a wing, I am before every play making a mental note of who is eligible to go out for a pass, because it could be a fake or a busted play, even on a try. So I think as a wing, it's a good lesson to put that mental note in. Who are your eligibles on each side, and if they're not one of the eligibles, then that really, lends credence to them potentially being an ineligible receiver in that situation.
But what an absolute perfect storm. I mean, you get a delay a game on the try, and then the bad snap, it looks like you're going to lose, and then you throw it up. Number 3 catches it, which is an eligible number, but he was the snapper. No one sees it, and you win the game and go to the state finals. Oh, I love it. I love it. I'm so glad this commenter gave us this play. Like I said, it's going to wind up on our channel in some way, shape, or form, even though the video is not great. But I just thought it was just a delicious play. Sorry for all the particulars involved, and it just got me to thinking about how would you officiate that play. And so, Justin, great, and Ryan, great conversation. Okay, so we had a little bit of a snapper catching the ball. We had our high points and our low points. Please, in the comment section below, put your high point of the season. Put your low point in the season. If you have any comment about a snapper catching a pass on a try, please put that down there too. We'd love to hear from you. Until then, this is Officials Timeout. Thanks for joining us.
If you're already a high school football official, have a great season. If you're not a high school football official, now is the perfect time to become one. Contact the Evergreen Football Officials Association and we'll help you make it happen. Until next time, we're the EFOA, making good officials better.